This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Tony Flowers wants to know if you could go back and relive 1 year of your wrestling career, what year would you choose and why?
Probably 86. I would think because the Horsemen were together, we were on fire. It was a new concept, but it was working and gelling, and it was on the upswing. It was just continued to get hotter and hotter, and our opponents continued to get more over and hotter, and it was where we experienced a lot of success as a company, which is the most important thing. You want your company to be strong so that everyone's job is secure. And I think 86 was a big year for Jim Crockett Promotions, and guys that had never, including me, been able to buy homes, to buy new cars, which I'd never been able to do in my life, and furnish those homes, and just have things that, a lot of us had never had before. That was a year that a lot of us were able to do those things. So I think it was successful. The fans were fantastic and they were red hot. It was just, everything came into place.
Let's keep it moving and talk about Tito Santana. We got a question from Josh Kuhn about that. He's a guy who doesn't get talked about enough. Any good memories of working with Tito?
Yeah, Josh, Tito Santana is one of those guys that was so good and such a good employee and never any issues. He was invisible, and he was the guy that you knew if you just said, Tito, I need 15 minutes with wrestler X, Y, Z, didn't matter, or I need 3 minutes. He was going to give you what you needed and the proper story. Just a really talented performer that was always so good that he almost was never in the news because he was always so consistent. And he was excellent every time I was in the ring with him. And every time I saw him work, he was just great baby face.
One of the all-time greats. And I agree. He doesn't get enough love. Probably doesn't get talked about enough. Another great question here from Ricky Morton's Mullet. He says, did you prefer the ropes in the WWF or the cables in WCW? It's worth mentioning, I guess, the ring ropes in the WWF were actual ropes, whereas in WCW, it was more of a cable with a covering on it. Talk to us about the differences and what you preferred one way or another.
Well, when you first start, they're both rough on your back because your back's not used to running full speed and having a cable dig into your back or having a rope dig into your back for that matter. I preferred the WCW rings just because they were a little smaller. The cables would kick you off a lot quicker, so it made the spots and the action a lot quicker. And the ring being smaller meant you weren't having to wait, or what you felt like you were waiting forever for a guy to come off the ropes and have your contact, whatever that was. It felt, going from a smaller ring to a bigger ring, it took a little while to get used to that downtime. Even though it was a second or two, it felt like an eternity to you, or to me anyway. And I just preferred the smaller ring with the cables.
Ricky Morton's Mullet wants to know, how did you go about getting your boots and trunks? I think back in the day, most of the guys got it from a company called K&H. Is that right?
Yep. And so did I. Bill Ash was my first boot maker. He made boots for a lot of the guys. He was out in Arkansas where his company was, but the tights were from K&H. And I just had, from day one till my final day going to the ring, I had standard K&H tights.
Talk to me about boots. We've heard Rick over the years praise Clifford Macias. How did you get hooked up with the guy in Arkansas, and why did you favor one bootmaker over another?
Well, back in the day, you just kind of fell in line. There weren't that many bootmakers. There weren't that many people making tights. Some people that made more money had private seamstresses, but it was, to make stuff that was different, long tights, once they started to go a little bit, upgraded, more flashy, whatever you want to call it, upgraded, trunks, long tights, whatever it may be. It branched out to more people that were doing that. But when I first started, it was just K&H, and it's just what you did. You ordered your tights from there and gave them the specs, and that was it. And there was a couple of boot makers. The one that Rick used was much more expensive than I was willing to pay. Ash was much more reasonable, and that's who I went with.
Well, nothing wrong with that.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.